Hey everyone, it's Cher from Cher Made Crochet back for another video. Today's video, I wanted to do a pattern review of the Julia Floral Lace Tunic pattern by Vicky. This is a paid for pattern, and I feel that it is worth every penny. I feel that it is a beautiful, perfect marriage of knitting and crochet because it gives you the really lovely crochet lace with the solid stockinette stitch from knitting. And it kind of gives you the impression that you got the garment at a store rather than a handmade piece of clothing, which I really like. And I'm constantly looking for patterns that give you that feel. So I used a 3.5 millimeter crochet hook and a 3.75 millimeter 32-inch circular pair of knitting needles by Gu. That was a mouthful. I hope that made sense. For the pink shirt, I used 2 strands of 8/2 tencel, and I basically just held it double to make a light fingering weight yarn. In hindsight, I probably could have used a 3rd strand, but I didn't have that. I just used what I could. But yeah, it worked out perfectly. It feels amazing on my skin. The fiber is a natural fiber. I believe it's made from wood pulp is what I read, I think, and it's gone through a chemical process. And ultimately you get a yarn that feels really silky, but doesn't have the price tag of silk. So yeah, I love Tencel for that reason. Something that I wanted to implore you to do, like I feel that it's super duper uber important to know about this pattern, is that it is one of those patterns that you have to do a gauge swatch on. At the time of me recording this, I have completed 2 shirts, and I'm making 2 more. And each one of them uses different hooks and different needles. And I wouldn't have known that one size would have been too small or too large without doing a gauge swatch. So it is highly important that you do a gauge swatch, because it would be a real shame if you made this garment and it turned out to be too big or too small for you. Yeah, I think that would be a shame, and that's a lot of time and effort just kind of wasted on making a garment that probably could have been fixed if you had made a gauge swatch. And I'm so terrified of making something that doesn't fit me. So I did the gauge swatch. All right. So enough about the gauge swatch. I wanted to talk about why I felt that this pattern was labeled as intermediate. And it's not because of the knitting, it's because of the crochet. The way that the garment is constructed is very different than I've ever done before. And so because of that, it was, because of how different it was just, there was a learning curve, and the learning curve taught me a lot, but it was definitely interesting. And so I find that the pattern is labeled as intermediate because of the construction of the shirt, of the crochet part of the shirt, not even the knitting part. And because of that, so the designer she does the written instruction and she has charts. I recommend you have the chart reading experience, or you're willing to learn how to read from the chart, because I felt that it was a lot easier for me to not be so overwhelmed with all the information I needed to know. And so I used both the written and the crochet chart instruction. It's just that I only use the written instruction to tell me how many times to do something and how many stitches I needed to start off with, rather than how to do the pattern. The pattern is very easy to remember. with a visual aid, I feel. Um, so yeah, I highly recommend you have the chart reading experience. It was a lot easier than just trying to read solely from the written pattern. Another reason why I feel that this is an intermediate pattern is the information that is given to you is a lot. There's a lot to look over, and there's a lot to have to filter through. And when you're first looking at this pattern, it's kind of hard to to filter out what is only pertaining to you. The designer does have an overview of how the garment is made in numerical order, which really, really helped. And I found myself studying that for about a week before I had enough courage to just start going for it. But it just, like, the information just kind of blasts you in the face if you don't know what you're looking for. So I recommend you look at the pattern overview. She does, when she's doing the directions for the garment, she does have it labeled by number from the overview. So whatever is number 1 on the overview of the construction of the shirt, that will be number 1 in the directions. So that's really nice. But yeah, and it helped me kind of block out any unnecessary information. And it also made me realize that a lot of the pattern that I was reading from, or that I was seeing, was actually for different sizes. So the only thing you need to know is what your size is. And if you know how to read a chart, you only need to look at the chart for your size, which made this pattern so much easier. So I just wanted to point that out there. She does have everything from an extra small to a 3X, and different sizes call for different instruction. And once I realized that, I just focused on what applied to me. So that's another thing that I wanted to kind of let you know about for this pattern. It's a lot easier once you get started than just constantly looking at it. So I just wanted to say that. But enough about the crochet. Let me talk about the knitting. I won't go into too much detail, but I am fairly new at knitting. I can only get the knit stitch and the purl stitch down, and I can do ribbing. But I can't really do much else. I can't really go past the the beginner level knitting patterns. So a couple of things you need to know is how to cast on knit stitches from crochet stitches. I did not know how to do this. I found a YouTube tutorial. I believe it is Be Hooked Crochet. I'll leave a link in the description box down below for exactly what I'm talking about. But that helped me out a lot because I couldn't find that in the pattern, which kind of scared me, but I found it through a YouTube tutorial. I think, honestly, this is probably the hardest part of the knitting, is just casting on the knitting stitches from the crochet stitches. It was very aggravating for me the first time I did it because I felt like I was doing it wrong. It was so awkward, but I have since gained the muscle memory for it. So while I still dislike doing this part of the pattern, it's a lot easier on me and a lot less aggravating for me than it used to be. So that's the first thing. The second thing you need to know how to do is an increase. I won't go into what kind of increases she does because I don't want to give everything away, but you have to do some increases so that you can get, you don't get like a flat or a flat garment. You get one that is slightly shaped, well, not shaped, but anyways, you've got to do some increasing. You need to know how to do that. It's not very hard. It's actually fairly easy, and you can probably look it up if you had it on the If you have the pattern, you can probably look it up on YouTube how to do exactly what they're talking, like the stitch that they're talking about. I found out because looked up a knitting tutorial on sock making. It was pretty. It was super easy. So, and then as for the stitch, because you're working in the round, it's literally one stitch over and over and over again. It is the perfect mindless project, and I love it. So yeah, that is my my overview review thoughts, kind of look into this pattern. I adore this pattern. I have looked for several excuses to make more of this pattern, and 3 of my friends have taken me up on the offer. I'm probably making more for myself. So yeah, that's it. Thank you all for listening to me chat about this. I hope it wasn't too confusing. I hope you liked it. And until next time, I will talk to you all later. Bye.